Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, when we talk about Michael Jackson, our minds almost instantly jump to the cinematic grandeur of Thriller or, those seismic bass lines of Billie Jean. But today, we're actually not looking at the masterpiece. We are dusting off a forgotten artifact in pop music history to uncover the secret blueprint of a global icon. We're looking at the messy, fascinating, and honestly entirely necessary rough draft that made the King of Pop possible in the first place. So on one side of his career, you've got the squeaky clean child star, right? Famous for those uncanny, mature vocals on ballads like Ben and Got to Be There. And then boom, on the other side, you had the unstoppable, barrier-breaking adult superstar of Off the Wall and Thriller. We all remember those two distinct eras. But to truly understand his genius, we have to explore this glaring, mysterious missing link, right smack in the middle, his 1975 album Forever Michael. Section 1. Friction at Motown Records. To really get this album, we gotta look behind the scenes. By the mid-70s, the Jackson 5 had kind of passed their initial commercial peak. The legendary Motown machine, which had perfectly crafted their early sound, was now basically running on autopilot. And to make matters worse, Motown's visionary founder, Berry Gordy, was getting super distracted by his Hollywood ambitions, mostly the film The Wiz. Meanwhile, the music world is pivoting hard toward funk and disco, and the Jacksons, they were feeling incredibly stifled. They were demanding the right to write their own material and play their own instruments, and the label, they flat out refused. Smack in the middle of this intense family and corporate tension, a 16-year-old Michael Jackson is tasked with delivering his fourth solo LP. Motown's mandate was rigid: maintain the teen idol status quo, but maybe give him slightly more sophisticated material to match his rapidly maturing voice. Talk about being caught in absolute purgatory. He was outgrowing his bubblegum youth, but he wasn't quite ready for that gritty, funky adulthood waiting for him just around the corner. Section 2. A Tale of Two Sounds. So how exactly did all this tension manifest in the music? Well, it created an incredible sonic identity crisis, fueled by a literal tug-of-war between two legendary Motown producers. On one hand, you've got Hal Davis, pulling Michael toward this lush, adult contemporary sound tailor-made for AM radio, using the famous Wrecking Crew session musicians to craft soft rock and soul hybrids. On the flip side, you have Brian Holland, fresh off his work with the Supremes, pulling Michael toward a heavier, syncopated groove. And you can hear this tug-of-war happening on the record. Davis is aiming for the easy listening charts, while Holland is desperately trying to drag Michael onto the gritty dance floor, which, let's be real, is where his heart truly belonged. When you actually listen to the tracks, the whole album acts as this weird, wonderful museum of transition. Take the lead single, We're Almost There. It's this slow-burning soul jam that acts almost like a declaration of patience. It's like a mission statement saying he isn't quite at total artistic freedom yet, but he sees the finish line. Then there's Just a Little Bit of You, which totally foreshadows his later funk and gospel vibes. But honestly, perhaps the most fascinating is the goofy outlier Dapper Dan. In this track, we hear an awkward teen testing out a smooth-talking character fantasy, a narrative device he would totally perfect years later in iconic songs like Smooth Criminal. Section 3. The Voices Change-O. All of this builds up to the undeniable elephant in the room: his changing voice. Puberty was in full swing by 1975, sparking a massive technical evolution in a span of barely 3 years. In his 72 hits, he was largely mimicking adult soul singers, specifically people like Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. But on Forever Michael, puberty unlocked this breathy baritone right alongside those youthful high notes. He is no longer just mimicking, he is interpreting. He starts playing with rhythm, delaying the beat, and syncopating syllables in a way that directly previews the rhythmic genius we'd all eventually hear on Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. On a mechanical level, musicologist Dr. Joseph Vogel points out something huge. He notes that this album marks the very first time Michael began using his voice as a percussion instrument. Those famous vocal hiccups, the breathy gasps, the staccato punches that pretty much defined his entire adult career, they were born right here in their embryonic form. He was actively teaching himself how to be a horn section, a drummer, and a singer all at the exact same time. It's wild to listen to. And this brings us to a really crucial concept for any vocalist, something called relational phrasing. This is the technique of not just hitting the notes perfectly, but actually relating to them, acting out the song's core emotion. Because Motown refused to let him write his own music, Michael mastered relational phrasing to pour his soul, his desperation, and his very real frustration into tracks he didn't even write. He basically compensated for his total lack of creative freedom with sheer, unadulterated vocal force. You can literally hear the anger and resignation in his delivery. Section 4. The Blueprint for Greatness. Now, despite this incredible artistic growth and vocal innovation, the immediate aftermath of the release painted a pretty disappointing picture. It was a steep commercial decline. While previous albums like Ben and Got to Be There shot straight to the top of the charts, Forever Michael peaked at a dismal number 101 on the Billboard 200. Why? Well, largely because the public simply didn't know what to do with the transitioning adolescent. He wasn't the cute kid they could pinch on the cheek anymore, but he wasn't yet the sexy, confident heartthrob that Off the Wall would establish just a few years later. The fallout was swift. First, Motown essentially threw in the towel and just gave up on promoting the album altogether. Second, the critics at the time completely missed the point, dismissing the record as uninspired, mainly because they were reviewing the corporate packaging rather than the actual performer. But step 3 is where history's made. This commercial failure and creative suffocation was the exact catalyst that led the Jacksons to leave Motown for Epic Records in 1976. That move secured them unprecedented creative control, finally giving Michael the freedom to write his own material. And to prove that the music itself wasn't the actual problem, we just have to look at the album's vulnerable crown jewel, a stunning ballad called One Day in Your Life. It completely flopped in the US upon release in 1975. But get this. When it was re-released in 1981, after the world had finally accepted Michael as an adult solo artist, it rocketed to become a massive #1 hit in the UK. It proved that his balladry and his emotional depth were always decades ahead of his peers. The world just had to catch up. Ironically, because the album sold so poorly back in '75, finding an original first pressing copy is incredibly difficult today. An original mint-condition US Motown vinyl pressing with the gatefold sleeve, it is incredibly rare. It fetches up to $200 for music collectors who truly understand its historical value. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Is an artist's awkward, unfinished chrysalis stage just as vital to their legacy as their final, perfected masterpiece? Ultimately, what you should take away from all of this is that Forever Michael isn't a classic, perfected palace of pop. It's the messy, pencil-drawn blueprints sketched on a napkin. But beneath all that corporate gloss, you hear a young man fighting for his artistic soul, making it the essential, entirely necessary foundation required to build a king.